I feel more confident about having a business. I feel like I really have my own business now, as opposed to just being a teacher, an independent teacher. I have a business. So it's definitely that shift of mindset. I knew that I wanted to develop some kind of course. And I think that like really you guys have the tagline of every teacher has a course in them,
Yeah.
or at least on one of the one of the promotional things.
Yes.
And so I think that was really attractive for me because I knew that I wanted to develop this kind of more of a passive income course. And through the process of joining Tab, I thought about it for a long time about like how that would work and what it would look like. And that was really helpful. Getting into the program, I have to say the weekly coaching calls were definitely the most impactful for me because I could see where other people were and but then get a lot of feedback on what I was thinking about. And I have to say that having three of you there is it's a big plus compared to other coaching situations. One of the things that you guys helped with is simplifying what is the transformation for the customers, and that helped. Okay, I could do it, and this part of listening, and this is another part of listening, and this is so it made it really helps clarify that for me. I feel I have a plan. I think that's a main thing. I think is I have a plan and I have a direction of things that I'm working on. Before I started, I didn't have, people would say, what is your 5 year plan or where do you see your business? And it was really hard for me to see that in the beginning.
I'm happy to sit down with Lori today, another teacher in our Teacher Accelerator program. Lori, how's it going?
Great. I'm happy to be here.
All right. Lori, you are based in Peru, isn't that right?
That is
All
correct.
right.
Yes, I've been here in Peru for uh, more than 10 years
More
now.
than 10 years. Okay. Wow. Full decade. I've never been to Peru. I was very honest. I don't know much about Peru. I've learned a lot about it from you, actually, working with you, which is cool. I'm well traveled, but Peru has escaped me and never, it's been on the list, as they say, but never was able to get there yet. But
You're missing out. You got to come.
that's what everyone says. That's what everyone says. But not here to talk about Peru necessarily, although we can. I'm here to talk about teaching, and we do these kind of sit downs just to get people experience of running a business, you're running your own business, working with us, etc. But before we get into all of that, I guess you've been in Peru for more than a decade. What is your teaching story? I think everyone's always interested how people got into teaching. What's yours?
My independent teaching story or my whole teaching story?
Why don't we start from the beginning? Yeah, your whole teaching. Maybe not the piano classes you taught in grade six, but maybe your ESL teaching. Yeah.
Okay, after I graduated from university, I was doing conversation classes at one of the local universities in this was in Rochester, New York, and it was run through a church and some other community organizations. And so I didn't have a lot of formal training at that point in time, but it was just mainly to welcome the international students and help them get adjusted more to the community life there.
Ah, okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, I really like that. Then through someone I knew there, I got an opportunity to be a language specialist for a call center in India.
Okay.
And I always wanted to go to India, so I have to say that decision was definitely more based on wanting to go there than the actual pedagogical implications.
Sure. How long were you in India and where were you?
In Chennai, in the south, it used to be Madras.
Okay.
Now it's Chennai, and I was there for 2.5 years.
Wow. Okay.
Mhm.
Amazing. What drew you to India? If it
Uh,
wasn't the pedagogical reasons,
no,
where did the interest in going to India come from for you?
I went to Rochester Institute of Technology, so there were a lot of international students. And I don't know, I made friends with a lot of them, and so it was just fascinating to me.
Amazing.
And especially, I grew up in a pretty small town, so it was the whole, I don't know, exotic is a bad word these days, but I suppose it was some of that.
Sure. Oh, of course. I'm the same. I didn't grow up in a small town, but definitely wanted to. I wanted to. Like, I told myself I wanted to study abroad during university, and then didn't.
Mm.
Basically, just never. After graduating, I think as most people do, just said, okay, I can do it now, without the study part. I did that. Not to India, although I've another country I need to get to because the culture is so interesting. The food is so good. learn so much about it. We in Canada, we have lots of international students from India as well,
Yes.
of course. So learn a lot.
Yeah, we used to cross the border sometimes to go for some Indian food. There were some Indian experiences, and the shopping was better there at the time in
At
Toronto,
least,
much
well, I don't know
more.
where you went. New York is probably more like closer to Quebec, maybe. Is that maybe where you were going? But at least in Toronto and the big cities in Canada, like you have what I would say is authentic cuisine from many different places. Like the people in the Indian restaurant actually are from India. The people in the
Yeah.
Japanese restaurant are actually not every
hmm
restaurant, but you have the choice of having a pretty genuine experience. Inevitably, you came back from India, and then when did you? Because I think most people are interested in this part, especially. Thought crossed your mind at some point of maybe I can teach for myself, or maybe it was what? How did you end up there, and what factors led to that decision?
Okay, I when I came back, I decided that okay, this is a real viable career path. And so I did my CELTA certification after that, and uh, I went to London, and then went to Tunisia to teach after I got my
Oh
CELTA
wow,
degree. I didn't stay there too long. It was like right after the revolution, and it was a little bit of a unstable
the
time.
Arab Spring. You were
So
there for the Arab Spring.
no, like it was right after their first round of elections.
Oh, okay, before
So.
that.
Mhm.
Okay,
So it had been the dictator had been ousted for about 6 months or something at that point in time, but it was still a little, it wasn't like unsafe, but things were like very, in general, like, unstable at that point in time.
suboptimal. Okay,
Yeah, and so I didn't stay there very long, only 6 months maybe, something like that. And then I came back and I taught in the US for a while in a prep program for university. And then I decided I wanted to travel again and I came to Peru.
all right,
So I was lucky enough. I think a lot of times you hear in South America that it's easier to go to South America and then find a job while you're there. But I was lucky enough. I had found a job online and that I applied for and I got hired for, and so that made the process a little bit easier for
nice.
me.
That was definitely when I went to Central America, not South, but that was what I was told as well. So you have to be there, boots on the ground, and then find a job. They won't hire you from home. I think at least in Costa Rica's reason is just because everyone wanted to go there. There wasn't any, they weren't hurting for people, teachers coming to teach there. It was like you have to be here because everyone wants to come here. So prove to us that you'll actually get on the plane first, and then we'll talk.
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, and I think for so long, at least from the States, I think in Europe it's different, but I think for the States, South America is that like travel and teach, more of the travel and teach mentality. So I can see
definitely,
why that was.
definitely. Okay, so landed in Peru
hmm
with a
Yes.
job,
Yep. Which I
and
stayed in that
then
job for almost 3 years, teaching in company.
and then they
And
fired.
so after that, it was just, I enjoyed the time there and it was great to learn the culture. But one of the great things about Peru, living in Peru, is that it's pretty easy to work independently or start your own kind of business. So legally, you can just say, you can get a tax ID and just say, I have a service base. I provide services, basically. I'm a person that provides services. So I had that, and yeah, and some of the students that I used to work with had mentioned, oh, if you do go independent, like I would come and teach with you, or I could come and learn with you.
They all
That's
say that.
always encouraging.
But what
hmm
really? So okay, you're working there at the school for 3 years. It sounds like
hmm
why you had like everyone would have three options, right? Just continue working at the school. That's it.
hmm
Quit or leave, do your own thing, or do both. What allowed you to choose one of the options that allowed you to work for yourself? Why not just continue to work for the school?
I would say that there were maybe two main factors, and one of them was that I was a little bit tired of not having the control that I wanted in the classroom. Okay, to teach because the company wanted them to follow a certain syllabus, and the students wanted to practice more speaking, and so it was. I got tired of that kind of pull.
Sure.
I get that push and pull a bit. And the other thing is, when I was doing it, I was on rotation, so it was like 10 days on and 4 days off. So
Interesting.
that gets a little tiring after a while.
Okay. Okay. Not exactly teaching in the way that you wanted to pigeonhole, for lack of a better word, into that.
Hmm.
And then also just scheduling logistics. It sounds tiring. Okay.
Yeah, more about the work-life balance. You want to have a little bit of
10 days in a row?
work-life
Wow.
balance. Hmm.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's intense. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And then, okay, great. That leads you to working for yourself. And what did you start to do?
So one of the things is I moved outside of Lima to a smaller city because the cost of living, I think like maybe a lot of countries are like this, where the capital city tends to be much significantly more expensive in the provinces. So that was one thing. And I started, yeah, and I took those students, I started working as a freelancer for some institutes as well instead of being an employee.
Okay.
So that was also helpful to get started with that.
Good. Good. Yeah, that's a great,
But I
great
was
place to
doing,
start.
yeah, with that, I went back to academic prep because I was doing test preparation, but I didn't really enjoy that as much. So I did that for maybe a year, and then I had enough students at that point in time to be independent on my own with
Okay.
the conversational classes that I wanted to do.
Okay. So then you're fully independent running conversation courses
Mhm.
outside of Lima in the
Yes.
rural parts of Peru. Okay. Great.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I guess talk to us about sounds like you in terms of starting your business, you did quite well in the beginning, got enough students to leave the freelancing contracts at least. So that's a win for sure. What and a lot of people don't start that way, don't start with immediate success,
No.
right?
Yeah.
So what would you say worked for you to be able to have that success right off the bat?
I have to say that it was a lot of networking, like picking up new students or like telling my current students that I was looking for new students and they would just recommend. And in the beginning, I think this part is probably true for most students is you end up doing, or a lot of teachers is you end up doing everything, whatever people ask you to
Yeah.
do.
Okay. So
Or
then,
you,
so when you had enough students with conversation, but you were really having 10 different things that you were having to do. Is that,
yeah,
so then that sounds like that was maybe your, did that for a while. And then that's your, is that your first kind of hurdle or first stumbling block or what? I guess that's another dichotomy of fork in the road of a professional life, right? You could then continue doing that indefinitely, but you didn't. So what made you decide that you wanted to change the model that you had in place?
I really started thinking about if there was a way to have some kind of passive income is really what
Uh,
I think that might have been the thing that got me thinking about it in more grander terms
the
because it
magic
was like,
collocation. Yes.
yes, I enjoy conversation classes. So for me, I think even when we first talked, Andrew, I think I told you that I wanted to continue to do conversation
You
classes
did.
because I
100%
enjoy
you
talking
did.
to my
Yes.
students.
Which is what a lot of teachers tell me. Because I think this is the great. I do too, which is the ultimate dilemma, I think, with working for yourself as an educator, where we're not like selling cars or you're not like creating furniture and selling them to families or whatever. Most of us
Yes,
do it because I like to think that we love the interaction and we love seeing the progress physically in the person that we're helping. So giving that up, quote, that's why I was joking, the magic collocation, passive income, because so many people believe when they hear that is just not
easy.
meeting anyone and just selling things on the internet, which is very hard, by the way.
Yes.
But then it doesn't mean you have to take away that interaction. And
Hmm.
every teacher that says, yeah, but I want to keep doing my classes, that's a good thing. That's a
Hmm.
great thing. You can have your cake and eat it too, to an extent, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it's the idea that but it gives you more choice, right? Or it gives you more control over who you work with and the students that you really get along with.
For sure. For sure. First step of starting a business sounds like, in your experience, or what worked for you, which doesn't mean there's no magic in a box for everyone, but doing some real life R&D exploration. I'm going to use just arbitrary number of 10 students, 10 students who maybe needed 10 different things, all conversation based. But through that, would it be a fair assumption to say you learned the type of client you wanted more of going forward and also the client that you maybe didn't want to work with going forward?
Yes, definitely. Definitely that helps. one of the things that when you talk about building or finding your niche, or as you guys say, dating your niche, I think
We're romantic about it. Yeah.
yes, but it's almost February now. Yeah, for me, I feel like that helped me to really define the niche. It's just that I was doing a lot of things, and then I could see which part I really like to do, and where I really felt that I could help students, and that ended up directing me towards focusing more like on conversation, but a lot on listening as well.
Right.
So it's like a lot of students come for conversational help, but a lot of them also have listening issues. So it's like I can specialize in that part of it as well.
All right. And then again, this is a great start to a business. We talk a lot about the problem solution cycle in entrepreneurship, right? Where you have a hurdle, you solve it, and that gives you the privilege of the next better challenge in front of you. So you're building, it sounds, and then I guess I forget, don't really remember to be honest, how you came across us or how we first met, but what made you realize, or I guess the thought process behind things seem to be going well. Where did you feel you needed help to get to the next step?
Yeah. So I think the first time that I had any contact with you guys is when I took the listening course that you have, the teaching listening made easy.
Yes. Yes.
And I think I took that like quite a while ago, maybe when it first came out.
I bought it
And
during COVID, I think. So
yeah,
5 years
okay,
ago,
yeah,
4 years.
yeah, in the beginning. And that helped with the whole defining the niche even before I really knew what it was going. But it really made me think about how I was teaching listening and what the problems that the students were having. And then I don't know. I think at that time it was COVID. If you said if it was happening during the COVID or
Yeah.
right before COVID, something like that, right? I was things were a little bit crazy at that point in time.
It was definitely
So
after,
it was
or like
something that
during.
I
I don't know this. It might have been 2020. It might have been 2021. Those are the options, but we would have released that course, I think. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and for me, the COVID was actually pretty good for me because it drove a lot of things online, and I had already been teaching online, so it was pretty easy for me to switch over. And during the beginning part of the pandemic, I worked a lot. I was doing a lot of classes because people were turning to that as a diversion, as a career boost during the time, whatever. And and I started following some maybe general business coaches at that time to start thinking about like where I wanted to go with this. I could make this a little bit, how I could make it a little bit more manageable.
And then you met us, and you decided to start working with us. For people that don't know us or haven't worked with us, can you maybe share a little bit about the experience working through what we call our TAP program, Teacher Accelerator program, coaching program? I guess maybe what your goals were coming into it, maybe the experience of working with us, and where you are now.
Yeah, so I knew that I wanted to develop some kind of course. And I think that like really you guys have the tagline of every teacher has a course in them,
Yeah.
or at least in one of the one of the promotional things.
Yes.
And so I think that was really attractive for me because I knew that I wanted to develop this kind of more of a passive income course. And through the process of joining TAB, I thought about it for a long time about like how that would work and what it would look like. And that was really helpful. Getting into the program, I have to say the weekly coaching calls were definitely the most impactful for me because I could see where other people were and but then get a lot of feedback on what I was thinking about. And I have to say that having three of you there is it's a big plus compared to other coaching situations
All right.
because you each have a different perspective and you can give your own perspective on that. And I find that very helpful.
Good. Okay. We're definitely different. No argument with that. What the word course is so interesting because it reminds me business is hard. I think it's fair to say, right? When we first launched TAP and had this idea, we saw like a need of okay, teachers are teaching one to one, and just like you said, want a way to systematize or reduce the contact hours. not to zero
Mm.
per se, but to a manageable, whatever that would mean for each person scenario. And we started with this every teacher has a course in them line, which we thought, hey, this is great, right? Thank you for saying that you liked it. But we got so much resistance at the beginning. And then we learned that everyone has, I shouldn't say everyone, but many people have a different interpretation of what that word course means. And a lot of people were interpreting it as us saying passive income, give up your hours completely, go sit on the beach, drink your cocktails, sell. We're like, oh, no, that's not what we mean. That's what you want to do, whatever. It's up to you. But no, we just mean as if you're taking a university class. You would have a lecture once a week, and then you would have readings and office hours and homework, and this package the experience together. So it
Mhm.
was a learning curve, a great one for us, because then we were able to like take on board where the disconnect was, and then okay, this is what is interpreted when we say this. We need to refine the message and then say this, and then from there it became quite good. Have you? Can you talk people through implementing that kind of model in your business, where it's not just also not sipping pina coladas on the beach either? How did you? How were you able to implement what we call the hybrid approach?
Yeah, I think I have to say that probably that was my idea. Not maybe not sipping pina coladas on the beach, but creating something that would be more of a standalone product. And I think that's one of the things that throughout the year, throughout this past year, that I've really went back and forth about is how do I want to work that. But so one of the things that worked for me is I created like this whole like this ideal customer journey that I wanted to take that I would like my students to go on
Yeah,
and like how a course would fit into that and what kind of what it would look like and if it was and how I could maybe have a passive version of that but also do a live round of that as well and that there were a lot of ways to be more flexible with the course that would work. Yeah, when I had a lot of ideas, I think, when I first came in.
ideas are
And I know, but sometimes they're like they take up too much space in your head and you can't get anything done
true.
because or my when I had worked on it by myself, I had this it was a very complex plan with like for listening and different it was way too much information. But like one of the things that you guys helped with is simplifying what is what is the transformation from for the customers and that helps okay I could do it and this part is this part of listening and this is another part of listening and this is so it made it really helps clarify that for me.
Good. Yeah, that's super important, right? Because with language, it's never over. Like you never learn everything about language. But if you're going to sell something or help someone, it has to be systematized and like step by step. And you don't have to. I think where teachers sometimes get a little ambitious with a course is trying to package everything together. It becomes this 27-week like thing, and then you try and go out and people are like, I don't have time to commit to a 27-week thing, you
Where
know?
it's an intensive every day they have to spend 4 hours practicing or something. Yeah, it
Exactly.
doesn't.
Whereas bring them along to station, right?
Mm-hmm.
University courses as well. You don't learn everything in one university course. If you're an undergraduate student, you have 4 years and you go through these things. And there's a bigger transformation, sure. But after your first year, you can drop out. You can leave. You'll have to continue with the university, right? You don't get the degree at the
Mm-hmm.
end, but with more intrinsic motivation, with which is usually what language learning is. Oh, there's extrinsic at points as well. But yeah, when you build the course, do a 4 year undergraduate degree.
Right.
Don't. What's the most meaningful transformation? What's the first priority for your ideal client?
Mm-hmm.
And go from there. And that's where they'll learn to trust you. Which brings me to this question, which I think is also important because I do believe people buy from people that not only that they like, but that they trust. Do you remember, or was there something about us that led you to build enough trust to take a chance on working with us?
Mm, I think it definitely helped that I had done the listening course, the teaching listening course with you guys beforehand because I already knew the quality of the materials that you provided there and that yeah, I think that was part of it.
Okay. And then now coming
Yeah.
through TAP, doing all the things that you've talked about, reorganizing your business, getting more clients, reframing this, would you, if someone's watching, would you recommend that? Or not a yes or no binary question, but what kind of teacher would you recommend joining the TAP program?
As a teacher, I think that you probably want to be a little bit further in your journey. Like maybe just starting out would be really hard because there's a lot of stuff going on. And when you talk about some of the teaching topics that you talk about, I think are like maybe not for the beginner teachers because they're just like maybe at least I was when I first
Right.
became a teacher. So I think that it's probably like not your first step in your teaching on your teaching journey, but like when you've had a little bit of experience, I think it's probably more for those teachers. And I think it's when you are have been teaching maybe in institutes for a while and you see what you want to do that's different, I think that it's ideal for that. I think TAP is ideal for that
All right. Fantastic.
situation.
And would you recommend it to people?
Yes, 100%.
All right. Cool. And outside of that, and outside of us at Learn Your English, just if a teacher is listening and they're curious about, maybe they work at a school, maybe they've never worked for themselves, maybe they're just entertaining the idea and have seen people do it but aren't sure if they can do it. Um, what advice would you give to that person as like a first step or first two steps to take the plunge into working for themselves?
I would say try something, really. I spend a lot of time, for me, I feel like I spend a lot of time experimenting and, oh, I'm going to try this and see how it works. I'm going to try a newsletter and see how it works. Or I'm going to try and build up, do one or two students on your own. It's hard. I think that's hard when you're in an institute because there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
no poaching rules and things like that. So you might want to be careful where you do that. But even if you're teaching online on Preply or something or one of the platforms, it's a good way to get your feet wet at that, I think, and see if you really want to do it because it's never easy having your own business.
Agreed. You have to embrace the challenge, I think.
Yeah, it's not for everyone. So that's why if you can just get your feet wet and really see if that's something that you like, if you like being able to the flexibility to do what you want. Some people are more like prefer to follow the rules and not take on a lot of risk, then it might not be for you.
Sure, I always say this like people, oh, can anyone be an entrepreneur? No. I know, no. But the risk part, there's risk in everything, right? So there's risk in
Mhm.
staying working for a school when maybe it'll go out of business, maybe they don't need you anymore, maybe student numbers go down. There's risk in that. And obviously there's risk in working for yourself because there's a lot of unknowns. But you need to embrace whatever path you choose. I firmly believe this. You have to embrace the challenges with it. Working for yourself, people always talk about being able to have more time for yourself, which hopefully you can. But you have to be an operator of the business too. You have to do your accounting.
Mhm.
You have to reach out to people. You have to do the taxes. You have to do the social. You have to do all the things that are inherent with a school does those things, not for
Yes.
you themselves. And then the teacher doesn't need to focus on that. So you take on those responsibilities as well. But I agree with the testing. You never know if you don't try it. So test it on your own
Mhm.
for a little bit and see if it's something that you like.
Yeah. Yeah, as much as you can experiment whenever before you make a big step, try and experiment for a little while and see how it goes, and then evaluate if you're ready to make that step. That's my advice.
A little mini quest to finish. These might be hard to answer, but we talk about this in TAP, and I think every teacher hopefully does this with their learners because progress is very hard to gauge. I think in real time, big things can be obvious, like you did a whole bunch of one-to-one lessons and now you're not. Like that's okay, but
Mhm.
sometimes it's hard to see the little things that unless someone else points them out to you. But looking back 12 months, that version of Lori, where have you come in the last 12 months in your business? What are you proud of?
We discussed in TAP quite a bit, not to that you don't want to sell confidence, right?
Yes.
But definitely, but definitely, I feel more confident about having a business. I feel like I really have my own business now, that as opposed to just being a teacher, an independent teacher. I have a business. So it's definitely that shift of mindset. Mhm.
Why, follow-up question, what, is there anything specific that helps, like, has led to feeling like that?
I I feel I have a plan. I think that's a main thing. I think is I have a
Right.
plan and I have a direction of things that I'm working on. I have a before I started, I didn't have people would say, "What is your 5-year plan?" or "Where do you see your business?" And it was really hard for me to see that in the beginning.
Okay. Well, that leads perfectly to my second mini question that we'll end on is Lori, future Lori, 12 months from now. What do you hope, if we have coffee again a year from now, what do you hope that version of yourself has or looks like that is a step forward from where you are today?
I have, in terms of my business, I have one course created, uploaded all of that stuff, not quite soft launch, but not launch. And so that
Could say, I
hopefully that
think.
will be bringing in money at that point in time.
Perfect. There's a
hmm
plan to shoot for, right?
Yeah, but and hopefully I'll be moving on to another part of I'll no, hopefully I will have moved on. Picture perfect. There.
Well, let's just remove the word hopefully and let's just do it.
Okay, by this time next year, I will have moved on to another project that I'm going to work
But not selling confidence, but not for that reason, because confidence is the result of
on.
progress, not,
And
you
it's
don't
not
have to be
quantifiable, yes.
very happy for
hmm
you. Lori, thank you for doing this. Thank you for spending some time with us. And thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for asking me.